Yahoo's deal with Verizon is still on, but also still in doubt. Industry observers wonder just who that state-sponsored hacker might be. Fancy Bear is back and distributing a Mac Trojan to aerospace companies. Investigation of the shadow broker's leak suggests inadvertent exposure, not hackers or moles. Investigation of the shadow broker's leak suggests inadvertent exposure, not hackers or moles. A new variant of Veerlock ransomware is out in the wild. The U.S. Justice Department warns of IoT threats. And a Hamburg magistrate finds Facebook in violation of German privacy law. It's time to take a moment to tell you about our sponsor, Recorded Future. Recorded Future is the real-time threat intelligence company whose patented technology continuously analyzes the entire web to develop information security intelligence that gives analysts unmatched insight into emerging threats. And when analytical talent is as scarce and pricey as it is today, every enterprise can benefit from technology that makes your security teams more productive than ever. We at the CyberWire have long been subscribers to Recorded Future's Cyber Daily, and if it helps us, we're confident it will help you too. Subscribe today and stay a step or two ahead of the threat. Go to recordedfuture.com/intel to subscribe for free threat intelligence updates from Recorded Future. That's recordedfuture.com/intel. And we thank Recorded Future for sponsoring our show. I'm Dave Bittner in Baltimore with your CyberWire summary for Tuesday, September 27, 2016. Yahoo's deal to sell its core assets to Verizon is still on, but it's also still in question. The agreement gave both parties an out should some cyber issue not discovered during due diligence come to light, and Verizon was, according to reports, unaware of Yahoo's massive breach until last week. Quartz offers the assessment that, quote, Yahoo wasn't lying when it told Verizon it didn't know about the biggest hack in history, end quote. Most accounts still link discovery of the breach to Yahoo's investigation of dark web claims by cybercriminal Peace that he or she had about 200 million Yahoo credentials for sale. However, some reports late yesterday suggest that Yahoo may have begun to have suspicions before Peace started the ballyhoo. Yahoo has claimed that a state-sponsored actor was responsible for the breach, but skeptical industry observers are offering theoretical grounds for thinking this unlikely. Security company A10 Networks commented dismissively in a CSO story that states are interested in intellectual property, not emails and passwords from a Yahoo account. It is true that states, particularly China, have indeed been interested in intellectual property, but one must also note that they're also interested in personal information, as we saw in the OPM hack, and that Russian intelligence services seem to have taken an interest in White House and DNC email credentials, so A10's observation is interesting but hardly dispositive. It's fair to say that blaming a nation-state for a hack is hardly an admission against interest. Almost every company that sustains a successful cyber attack would prefer to be the victim of an intelligence service as opposed to an ordinary crook, even less a skid hobbyist or a random script kiddie. You look less negligent if your hacker was the PLA or the GRU. It's also entirely possible, as security company Flashpoint told CSO Magazine, that U.S. law enforcement agencies may have asked that Yahoo refrain from saying too much about an ongoing investigation. Yahoo has the usual foreseeable legal exposure due to the breach. Not only is the Verizon deal in doubt, but several class action suits have been initiated. U.S. senators have also asked the Securities and Exchange Commission to investigate. In other state-sponsored hacker news, Fancy Bear is poking at Western aerospace industry targets with a new Mac Trojan, Complex. Palo Alto Network's Unit 42 reports that the threat group otherwise known as the GRU is distributing Complex via phishing emails. There's no OS X zero-day being exploited here, it's all user interaction. It's probably worth running through the other names associated with Fancy Bear, since we've heard them before and we'll hear them again. APT-28, Pawnstorm, Sofasi, and Sednit. Different badges, but the same familiar people. We hear over and over again that there's a serious shortage of qualified candidates for cybersecurity jobs. Kathleen Smith is Chief Marketing Officer at clearedjobs.net, and she joined us in our Baltimore studio to discuss a recent study addressing this issue.
This is the Hacking the Skills Shortage, which was commissioned by Intel, done in partnership with the Center for Strategic International Studies, really looking at the global workforce challenge along with what are governments doing and what level of education programs are available in 8 countries globally. So what's interesting is all respondents in all 8 countries said that they felt that their education programs were deficient. And they really felt that it was the government's role to be able to make sure that the educational programs were coming up to speed as far as providing enough cybersecurity programs.
Take us through some of the key findings of the study.
71% said that the shortage has caused measurable damage to their business. 1 in 4 said the insufficient staff strength that they had, meaning not only the number of people, but the depth and the breadth of the skills that the people had damaged their reputation and had led to intellectual property loss. The skills that were in the shortest supply were intrusion detection, secure software development, attack mitigation, and these were more important than the lack of communication or leadership or team management that companies say that they were looking for. While half of the companies prefer a bachelor's degree for entry into the cybersecurity workforce, it was not an indicator of skills they found. Hands-on skills and professional certifications were valued higher. 68% said that CTF's Capture the Flag programs are critical in developing skills within their organizations. And finally, 9 out of 10 respondents said that technology at some point will be able to take up the slack by providing automation.
So I think a takeaway from that, if you're a student working your way up through your bachelor's degree, what should you be doing?
You should be making sure that if there is any Capture the Flag program going on locally, regionally, that you are part of it. There are also several of the Capture the Flag competitions available online. When I've done a recent search, you can find one pretty much going on every single week. Some of the other components that I really liked about this study was really looking at the employer dynamics. While many studies will say we need to invest in more students, we need to invest in more education, a core aspect is the employer dynamics. It is not just filling butts and seats. It's really looking holistically at how you're going to recruit, cultivate, and retain your workforce. So many of the employers said that they were just interested in filling the seats. They were not interested in looking at further investment. And it is a challenge because when you look at the candidates in the workforce who say, I need more to be able to stay at this company. I need to be sponsored to participate in events. I need to be sure that those certifications that you're requiring me to have, that you're going to help pay for those. So it is really looking at shifting the dynamics of the employers, not just on how they recruit, but how they retain their workforce.
That's Kathleen Smith from clearedjobs.net. We'll hear more from her on tomorrow's CyberWire podcast, including her views on what companies need to do to attract and retain the best of the best. Many Cisco routers vulnerable to the 0 days exposed by the shadow brokers remain unpatched. The FBI's investigation into where the shadow brokers got the material they leaked is said to be moving away from the theories that Russian services accessed NSA networks or that a Snowden-esque insider compromised NSA tools, and toward the NSA's own view: someone inadvertently left the material exposed on a server. Ransomware continues to concern enterprises, especially in the healthcare and educational sectors. Netscope researchers warned this morning against a new strain of Veerlock ransomware. Veerlock itself is about 2 years old, but its newest variant is polymorphic. It both encrypts and infects, and it's particularly troublesome in a cloud environment where Veerlock can spread through syncing and file sharing. The DDoS campaign that took Krebs on security offline last week continues to arouse fears around Internet of Things security. The very large denial-of-service attack was evidently accomplished using IoT botnets. The U.S. Justice Department is issuing new expressions of concern over IoT-based threats. And finally, if you didn't much care for Facebook's use of WhatsApp user data, you're not alone. In Germany, Hamburg's Commissioner for Data Protection and Freedom of Information has found the social media giant in violation of privacy laws. So the relationship status here should be set, at best, to complicated. We've got another message from our sponsor, Recorded Future. What are you doing the first week in October? If you're a threat intelligence enthusiast, consider joining Recorded Future for Our Fun 2016 in Washington, D.C. on October 5th and 6th. This year's annual conference promises to be at least as good as the last four. After all, it's organized by Recorded Future, the people who know a thing or two about collection and analysis of the information out there on the web. Recorded Future customers, partners, and threat intelligence enthusiasts are all invited to Our Fun 2016. Meet others like you, people who understand that cybersecurity depends on actionable intelligence. Network with your information security peers to learn how others apply threat intelligence. Our Fun is the place to be if you're a threat intelligence enthusiast. Register now, it's free, at recordedfuture.com/ourfun. That's recordedfuture.com/RFUN. And we thank Recorded Future for sponsoring our show. And I'm joined once again by Joe Kerrigan. He's from the Johns Hopkins University Information Security Institute. Joe, I spent some time over the previous weekend helping my father with his computer, just updating the OS. And, it struck me that when it comes to older folks, which my father is, they are particularly vulnerable when it comes to people trying to come after them to steal their stuff in the cyber world.
Right, yeah, they are more vulnerable because they didn't grow up in the kind of environment that they exist in now. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what study I could point to, but I have this general feeling that as we get older, we get a little less adaptive to change and to the way things are becoming different around us. And if you think of this generation that's now retiring, mm-hmm. they have seen a significant amount of change in their lifetimes. They've gone from having no computers in the world or in their life rather to having computers all around them, and that is a hugely significant change that's happened.
Yeah, and one of the things I ran into was that he was a couple versions of the operating system behind.
Mm-hmm. And you don't like to see that because you want them to be up to date because that's a best security practice.
Well,
right?
Exactly, and that's kind of my point is that while I want to have him on the latest version for all of the security reasons, it's hard to bring him up to date because things change in the operating system, and that's a discomfort point for him.
The user interface changes, and he's gotten accustomed to using the old interface, and now he gets a new system, and there's a completely new interface.
Right. Well, but I think for those of, I think, you and me, and I'm sure most of the people who are probably listening to this show, we end up being the default tech support.
Correct. Yeah.
For our older parents,
right.
and our loved ones, and they look to us. And from the security point of view, I basically have my father trained to whenever something unusual happens on his computer, I get a phone call or an email.
Yeah, I get the same thing.
And I think that's a good thing.
I would agree. I think that's very important. You certainly don't want them picking up the phone and calling some scammer and saying, well, what do I do now?
Right.
And the answer is always, well, you give me your credit card number.
Right.
Don't.
Right. Yeah. And I do, it's funny. Sometimes I have to check myself because it can be frustrating, to be interrupted, whatever you're doing, to take care of their basic needs.
Yeah. I find that's not something that happens just between me and, say, my older parents, but even between me and my wife or between me and my kids or other kids, I get this feeling like, why don't you understand this? And the answer to that is that they don't understand it like you don't understand it because they're not steeped in it every day, right?
Yeah. I remind myself that our day will come, and someday our children will be looking at us, shaking their head ruefully at our inability to understand the latest technology the same way that we are with our parents. So
how do you work the Snapchat?
That's right. All right, Joe. Good talking to you.
Good talking to you, Dave.
And that's the CyberWire. For links to all of today's stories, along with interviews, our glossary, and more, visit thecyberwire.com. Thanks to all of our sponsors who make the CyberWire possible. And if our daily podcast just isn't enough for you to get your fill, I'm a regular contributor on the Grumpy Old Geeks podcast for their Security segment. It's a bit looser than what we do here, and it's a lot of fun, so do check it out. The CyberWire podcast is produced by Pratt Street Media. Our editor is John Petrick, our social media editor is Jennifer Ivan, and our technical editor is Chris Russell. Our executive editor is Peter Kilpie, and I'm Dave Bittner. Thanks for listening.